Hey, all you freedom lovers. This is Kevin, and this is the Freedom Lovin' Podcast, and this is episode number 60. So I've been trying to get this podcast out for at least a week now. I actually recorded the intro here a few days ago, and then I hated it, so I deleted it. And then I came down to Panama, and I am starting over. But in just a minute, I have an interview that I did, or that a show that I was on called Confessions of a Lifestyle Preneur with Kurt Worrell, and he interviewed me on his show, and it was a great time. And we talked about a little bit about my background, a little bit about Bitcoin, and we got into some philosophy and just kind of breaking free, the theme of the show here. So stay tuned for that. Just a little about my Panama trip. I planned this trip about a little over a month ago, like right after I got back from Colombia, and completely different intention with coming to Panama than when I went to Colombia. Colombia was with friends, and it was basically nonstop travel. For this trip to Panama, which I left on December 29th, I just wanted to get out of town and just kind of get away and to somewhere warm where I could really just focus, get some work done, kind of plan out the next year, and also see a few new things, but kind of put that on as a side note. So I'm definitely going to see some new things done here, but the official reason for being here is to kind of just work and then be in warm weather. And I'm really glad I picked this time to come down here, because the last I heard it was snowing in San Diego, which is great, but I don't need to be in snow because I really hate cold. So if I can get down to somewhere like this for at least a couple of weeks in the winter, that's really awesome. So I forgot my microphone, and I forgot almost everything somehow when I came down here when I was packing. I don't remember. I don't know why. I had plenty of time to pack, and I actually switched bags. I think that's what screwed me up. At the last minute, I decided to take a bigger bag, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll take more stuff. Well, I ended up forgetting like my socks and some T-shirts and my microphone and just a few other, my sandals that I usually hike in. And so I've got a lot of things missing. I'm probably going to go shopping a couple days from now when the stores are open. Panama has been awesome so far. I'm really been enjoying it. I love the weather, and it's pretty modern. I mean, I definitely would consider Panama still probably, I don't know if it's considered a third world country, but there's definitely a lot of third world aspects to it. But Panama City is very modern, and there's, the skyline has all kinds of new buildings, and I guess it's only like 1.3 million people in Panama City, but it seems actually a lot bigger. It seems like a really big city, and there's tons going on here. And it's got kind of a mix of cultures here. It's obviously a lot of Central America people, a lot of Panamanians, but there's people from the U.S., there's people from Europe, Canada, and then there's also, there's a lot of Asians here. And particularly, I've seen a couple of grocery stores that are run by Asians. So that's interesting. I don't know the whole history behind all of this, but I've only been here a couple days and just kind of figuring it out. And it's actually New Year's Eve right now. It's almost 8 p.m., and I have no plans. I am just doing some work, recording this podcast, doing some reading. Probably need to get some food at some point, and then might just walk around town and check out the fireworks, which I know are coming. South America, Central America tend to like loud noises, so I'm not a huge fan of loud noises, but for this night, I'll be happy to see some fireworks and just getting things done. So it's a little different New Year's Eve, although I'm not really a New Year's Eve person. Once in a while, every few years or so, I'll go out and go to some big club or something, but I definitely don't need to do that. And in fact, I'd rather not. A New Year's Eve is one night where I kind of like to keep it mellow, just based on my past experiences going out on New Year's and not having the best time when I go to these big parties. So it's probably due to my introvert nature, and also just it's kind of like the amateur night out, and I just get kind of annoyed with all that. Anyway, so just one more thing before I get to the interview. I have been reading this book called The One Thing, and it's really helping me a lot to focus on what I'm doing. And they talk about how it's really tough to be successful if you are trying to do more than one thing at a time. And in fact, something like multitasking is really impossible. And so trying to focus on 3 or 4 businesses all at once is a recipe for not having success in any of them. And that's kind of what I've found that I've been doing is trying to do too many things at once. And so I've gone through and written down so many things about what I want to do and how I want to get there. And, I think my thing will be patience, and kind of like taking it one chunk at a time instead of thinking, okay, I got to do all these things and then never doing any of them. That's been my issue in the past, is just, kind of overwhelming myself and going, oh, I have to do these 27 things to start to minimalize or start to focus on one thing. And then I just kind of plug away and keep doing the same things I've been doing and getting the same results. So that's my thing. I don't like the New Year's resolution idea, but if I were to like New Year's resolutions, mine would be to really get this one thing concept down and start really focusing in and creating a real business that's not all disjointed, but instead all kind of coming together. And I think that's the big thing. So the Freedom 11 podcast will continue. It's very enjoyable to me, and I like talking about this stuff. Maybe not quite as frequently, but we'll try to get podcasts up as frequently as possible. And yeah, so also if you need help with your business, let me know. I'd love to shoot ideas around, and I'd love to help you out if I can. And I'm going to be doing some consulting, so you can just email me at kevin@freedom11.com. And so that's about it. I wanted to get to this interview with Kurt Worrell. Happy New Year, and go out there and build some freedom this year. Create an awesome life, and we'll talk to you soon.
In today's episode, we speak with Kevin Cascella of freedomloving.com. Kevin shares with us his idea of true freedom and the future of Bitcoin.
Want to build a true lifestyle business? Then sit back and listen to Confessions of a Lifestyle Preneur, the show that inspires you to live life 100% while building a true lifestyle business from the information in what you know, do, or love. Dishing up healthy servings of confessions, secrets, interviews, and downright honest truth. Now, here's your host, the man voted Father of the Year 3 consecutive times in a row by, well, his kids. Mr. Turn What You Do and Love into Income himself, Kurt Worrell.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on, man? How are you doing? It's good to have you on the show. What's going on?
Hey, Kurt. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. I'm just starting my day here in Southern California and starting to, get on with the day.
Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk more about your story, and then we'll get into your business a little bit, okay? So tell us, who is Kevin Cascella?
Basically I graduated college having no idea what I wanted to do. I was an athlete in school, and I mostly focused on my sport, which was swimming, and got out and I bounced around from a few different tech companies. I was doing some marketing, some sales, and never really found my place there in the corporate world. And after my last job, I got laid off, and I was like, it just doesn't feel right to go back to another job and go back to the corporate world, because the office lifestyle was not working for me at all. I wasn't a good person to have a boss, because I just don't like having somebody, telling me what to do all the time and constantly checking everything that I do. And so the situations that did work in the corporate world were where I had a hands-off boss, and I generally knew what I needed to do, but they didn't constantly check in with me. So I started with, I was really interested in doing something in sports or fitness. And so and I was coaching swimming part-time, but obviously that doesn't pay the bills. So I started looking at things to do. So I got my personal training certificate, and I started working as a trainer, but that doesn't really pay much unless you're willing to work like crazy hours and burn yourself out. So I started a business, and it was basically an in-home personal training business. And I thought it would be great if I could get people to work for me in the business, and then I would just be the owner, kind of the rich dad, poor dad thing where they're doing all the work and I'm sitting back and just kind of collecting the paychecks. Well, that didn't really work out too well, because what happened is if you're a trainer, people want you as the expert. They don't want your people. So I was trying to say, advertise my business and say, yeah, I've got all these trainers that are great, but everyone wanted to hire me because I was the head of the business. So I ended up doing a lot of the work myself, and what happened was I found that I was just working for, trading time for money, and I didn't like that at all. In fact, I thought it was worse than being an employee because constantly I was thinking about work and constantly doing work, and I just felt stressed out all the time, and I really didn't like that. So I wanted to move into some sort of business, and at that time I had a website for my personal training business, and I started learning about how to do internet marketing just from various sources. And I liked that idea, like selling things online. I thought this is something I could do. So since I was coaching swimming on the side, I decided to start a website where I was teaching lessons, and it was called Try Swim Coach. And that I ended up getting it was mostly adults that I was teaching. So kind of a niche, because a lot of people focus on kids swim lessons, but there's a huge number of adults that want to learn how to swim or to get better at swimming. So that was my niche. And then it just so happened that everybody that was coming to me were triathletes, or they wanted to do a triathlon, which is swim, bike, run race.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I got the idea of like, well, okay, I can design programs for these people because they don't have any direction. They know they need to know how to swim, but as far as triathlon goes, there's a lot you need to know. So I just created a document that had a training plan, and I put it up on my website. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I took off to Europe, and I just had finished the website, just had finished putting the workouts up there. Took off to Europe on a vacation, and I hadn't checked my email in 3 days. And I go into a cafe in Amsterdam, check my email, and lo and behold, I had like 3 or 4 orders that came in while I was traveling.
Nice.
And yeah, well, it was very nice to see that. But then I got an angry email because apparently the download function wasn't working as it was supposed to. So that was my introduction to kind of internet business, and it was bittersweet because I was excited to get orders, but then things weren't working, and somebody was threatening to sue me over $20. So
wow.
So that's how it all started. So but it eventually smoothed out. I got everything worked out, and the excitement of making money while you're doing other things was just so amazing to me that's what really propelled me to keep going, and that's what I did. Is I just kept adding to that site, and I created a book. It was an ebook, and I started selling that, and I learned how to get affiliates, and I learned how to build a list, and just sort of learned everything as I was going along, and then I just advanced everything. So then I made a DVD, then I created a membership site, and now I'm sort of doing all of the above. So I've got everything on the site, and also we're doing a continuity program where they're paying per month. So that's where I am today. I'm really excited about that. I also have some other projects going on, but that's but as far as internet business goes, that's where I am.
That's excellent, man. That's awesome. And, the beautiful thing is that you create a business from something that you already knew, something that you were passionate about. You were already involved in it. You had a lot of expertise, knowledge in swimming, and you not necessarily stumbled, but you got into a niche that, pretty much fit with your business. Right. Or with your skill set. And you know what, as you mentioned, triathletes and swimming, I'll be honest with you. I ran the New York Marathon, right? And after running the marathon, I wanted to do a triathlon, right? And so, but I never did it. And the reason I didn't do it is because I wasn't that strong of a swimmer.
Yeah.
Right. So you're, when I was thinking about it, I should have been looking for you at that moment.
Yeah, that's kind of the niche that I kind of fell into there, because that's what I saw out there. There's so many people that, if a lot of former runners or current runners that are just want the next challenge, and they get in the pool, and it's really, really difficult, and most people sink. So that's one of the problems that you get in. You're used to running. You probably have really low body fat, and you jump in the water, and it's like, good luck even trying to stay up on top of the water, let alone swim laps. So that's where, there's some techniques that really work well out there. It takes a little time to practice and get to the point where you're, continuously swimming, but it really works. And it's kind of fun to see people go from zero to, being able to finish a triathlon swim. So
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, that's one of the things that kept me away from actually doing a triathlon. So
yeah.
That's excellent, man. So let's talk. So that's definitely your way of, because one of my questions is, how do you finance your travel, and that's definitely your model, right? That's one of the ways in which you go about doing it.
Yeah. At this point, it's it almost runs itself. I mean, I have to go every day and work, but it's something that I can travel and make money still, and that's
nice.
That is one of the reasons why I'm doing internet business, is because I can have a lot more freedom, and I can I can go places and not feel guilty about missing work. Like, whereas before it was either a company where they gave me like 2 weeks of vacation a year, and I could use that up, and that was it, or I was working for myself, and if I left, then the money dried up. So this was something.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's a beautiful thing. It's just, that inspiration of just waking up in the morning and seeing some money in your bank account, and, it's just the whole thing. It's just a beautiful thing. Let's talk about traveling for a little bit. How has your travel endeavors affected or changed your perspective on business?
Yeah, and there's a few ways. One is that the fact that I could do it. I mean, the first trip was that trip to Europe that I mentioned, where I just started my business online, and I was already making money. So it was like that was a really awakening moment, where it was like, okay, I am actually moving around and not really getting to the computer to check my email even, but I'm still making a little bit of money. So that was really exciting. So just the idea of that, and then really, I mean, I'll go back to where I first really wanted to travel and kind of live in other places, or spend a lot of time in other places. And back in 2008, and I went to Australia, and I basically was traveling constantly around in New Zealand and Australia, and it was pretty easy to do, because the time is about, I think it's like 17 or 18 hour difference between California and Sydney. And so I would get up in the morning and do work for about 3 hours, and then California would basically be about 6 p.m. here, would be shutting down. So the rest of my day, I would just go off and explore different places in Sydney or Australia. And but I felt like I was really efficient. So when I travel, I felt like I only had that window of time, or just a little bit in the morning, and then pretty much the rest of the day I would just kind of goof off. But that sort of forced me to be really efficient and actually get things done. And so, yeah, traveling, and so that's the good side of it, that you can, I think it kind of forces you to work when you have the time, and when you have the place and the Wi-Fi and everything. On the other side, it can be really tough to get a schedule if you're constantly moving around, and if you're just going from one place to another, that can be really difficult, because you're kind of not on any schedule. You just like show up one place, and then you have to get on a train or a plane or something, go to another place, and then everything's kind of gets a little bit messed up. And so there's a lot of challenges with it, but yeah, overall, I found that it really helps, and it gives you a lot of confidence when you go on a trip and you're gone for, let's say a month, and you come back and the amount of money that you made was the same or more than when you were sitting in your place and working away. So yeah, it's an awesome feeling. I mean, it really is. It's like,
yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And you just came back. I was reading your one of your posts. You just came back from Colombia, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah.
What was that about? What was that like?
Yeah. So I was doing, before, like the last few years, I've been doing a lot of long trips, like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, but more like living places. But this time, this year, I decided I want to do a lot of little smaller trips, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And because I wanted to see what it's like to have a home base. Like I really wanted to try having a home base and not bouncing too much, but still going on a lot of trips. So yeah, I had a friend that was wanting to do a South America trip, and we just talked about all the different countries. I heard amazing things about Colombia, and so did he. And so yeah, we just decided to go, and kind of not much planning at all. In fact, we got there, and I was traveling with two friends, and all three of us said, yeah, we didn't even know where the first city that we started in was Cartagena. Cartagena, and that city, we didn't even know where it was before we got there. We were like, oh, it's on the Caribbean. Okay, that's good to know. So we didn't do a whole lot of research, just kind of showed up. I studied Spanish a little bit just so I could kind of at least somewhat get by. But yeah.
Any eye-opening experiences while you were there?
Yes, there definitely were. Well, I'll start with, so we went to two cities, Cartagena and Medellin, which is, that's in the mountains kind of. And that's, so Cartagena was, on the one hand, it had a lot of natural beauty. There's a beach in the city. There's another beach that you take like a 40-minute bus ride to that's pretty nice. And then we did some snorkeling. We did kind of some of the tourist stuff. But it's dirt poor. I mean, it is just like you walk around the city center and there's a lot of people that are just sitting around and not doing anything. And it's like they're just kind of watching the world go by, and they're not really, it seems like there's just not a lot of work in that city. And so that was really a kind of an eye-opener. Didn't feel, it felt at times in Cartagena, it really felt the third world thing where it's like, this place is different. Like there's a sketchy element here. Never had any problems. Just had one run-in with the police there, but that's kind of a given in a country, in a lot of countries where they're just going to try to shake you down. And but we got out of that unscathed, so that was pretty lucky. Then we went to Medellin, which is really like 180 degrees different. So that the thing that was really neat about that city is that it's super modern. They have a subway system. They have the streets are really clean. There's trees everywhere. The buildings are all like, there's a lot of new buildings. You just get the feeling that things are happening there, that it's booming, that like Colombia is not what it used to be. It's coming out of that period of time where it was really violent, and now it's cleaned up. There's a lot of people working, doing things in business. There's a lot of expats there. We met some Americans that were just living in that city. And it's really an amazing place, and it's got great restaurants, it's got great nightlife, so that was pretty amazing. And not to say that they don't have their own poverty in that city too, but that, yeah, I think that was the surprising thing there. And the last thing I'll mention about Colombia is we did take a tour they have these tours of Pablo Escobar. He had an estate there or a house there in Medellin. Yeah. And I didn't even think twice about it. My friend that was staying there temporarily signed us up for this tour. And he's like, yeah, you want to go to this? And I said, yeah, that sounds interesting, because I like history. And not that I'm not supporting the guy or anything. I'm just saying, I like history. But it turns out that a lot of Colombians don't like this at all, that there's a tour that is kind of like showing this guy and showing like him in a light that makes him look good. So it's sort of a touchy subject there, and I didn't realize this going in, but then when I was on the tour, I realized that like this guy was a bad dude. I mean, he when he was kind of in power there was like 10 murders a day. So it's a bad history, and but it is interesting and to see where they came from. So anyway, that was kind of an eye opener as well.
Cool. Excellent, man. Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about your actual podcast. Like I said, I visited your podcast, and really cool content. I like the way you deliver the content as well. I
was going to go with Freedom Loving with a G at the end, but then that site was taken, so I just dropped the G and called it Freedom Loving.
Okay.
So I started in the inspiration really, it came from back in around 2008. I read a book called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Brown, and it just blew me away. I actually read it. I read the book and then I read it again because I was so blown away by the material. And it's basically talking about how no matter what your circumstances are, wherever you came from, whatever country you live in, you can increase your level of freedom. And there's so many ways. And in each chapter, he goes through different ways in which people kind of box themselves in and create their own prisons and think that they're not free, even though they have all this ability to be free. And, and a lot of it starts with just your life. You forget about like the idea of government or anything like that. And just what can you do in your life to make yourself more free? Are there things that you're doing right now that you're sort of accepting as, okay, this is just the way it is, when you could change that and make a difference? So,
right.
I mean, he has a lot of different like he challenges a lot of the traditional way of thinking, like, oh, I must go to college. Oh, I must buy a house. Like all these things. And then he talks about all these different traps that people get themselves in, like the bad investment trap. Like you make a bad investment in something and you just continue to do it because you think you have to, because it's like, I can't give up now. I'm already this far in. Whereas you're better off turning away and going, that's not working for me. I'm going to do something else. Right, and that can be a financial thing. It can be a relationship. It could be, a job. It can be all sorts of things where you're just kind of like, well, I've already gone this far, so I can't turn back. So that sort of inspired me to do something. And then it took me, I don't know, it was a couple of years after that, or maybe 3 years after that I actually started a website. And my initial thought was, I want to do a travel blog. Like everybody's a travel blogger. And I was going on a trip to Bali, and I thought I'll just do blog. I'll write about it. I'll do videos, and I'll just put it. And that was how the freedom11.com blog started. So. So I started just kind of documenting things and talking about how things were going on the trip. I did a lot of videos, and that was all fun, but it wasn't really my thing. Like I don't really want to be a travel blogger. I enjoy writing, but that's not what I want the site to be about. So later on, I started writing some posts about how to be free, how to, different techniques on adding more freedom into your life. So I started talking about different ways you can do your money, different ways you can, do things in internet business. And that was kind of more what I wanted to do. And then also just the stuff with like mindset, how you're viewing the world, how you're viewing your place in the world, and how that can really affect how you feel and how free you are. And so that's where I started. And then later on, I started the podcast after that. And I just wanted to start talking to people that were actually doing things and that were pulling themselves up and getting out there and creating a free life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, that's what it's about. And it's, and you touched on it. It was perfect. A lot of times we live in, we create these stories, right? We create these stories about what we can do and what we can't do. And we live in circumstances. And we stay in that circumstances, and we create a prison for ourselves when the reality is, you can do anything. What got me to that point where I really realized my defining moment where I realized that anything is possible is one time we just picked up our stuff and just started traveling. We went down to Mexico and Belize, and we just started doing the travel thing, just started traveling with 3 kids. Now prior to that, we kept making excuses for ourselves. Well, we'll wait until the money is right, or we'll wait until this is happening, or we'll wait until that and it never happened, right? It never happened. And the moment we decided, and as a matter of fact, we took off at a moment when there wasn't an abundance of the things that we were talking about having. You know what I mean? Everything was pretty much the same, Right. And so it made me realize that, hey, when you make the decision and just decide on doing something, it doesn't matter what it is. You can make sure it happens, Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very interested. What does freedom mean to you? What is that about for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually ask that to a lot of my guests because it's something we talk about a lot, and the meaning can be different for everyone. And actually, I just did a recent podcast on the idea that searching or seeking out freedom might not be your best goal to have as a business person, because it's sort of like how do you obtain freedom? It's not an actual thing that exists. It's actually the lack of things. So what I mean is that for me, freedom would be the lack of obligations. So that doesn't mean that it sounds like I'm saying like I don't want to work ever. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit around. But it's more the obligation thing is that you have to do something, that you wake up in the morning and you feel like I have to go to work. I have to be married to this person. I have to, call my mom or whatever, like all those things are, I think, taking those away, those obligations away, that you feel like, oh, I'm obligated to do these things. That's where freedom comes in for me. And I didn't like doing work for work's sake. So just going to a job to collect a paycheck was not interesting at all to me. In fact, I'd rather scrape by and do something that I'm at least somewhat interested in than to go to a cubicle every day and collect a paycheck and not be at all interested in the work I do. So, and the same goes for relationships. If I'm in a relationship where I'm just not excited about it or I'm not into it, I don't want to feel like, oh, I'm obligated because X, Y, and Z. Like, because I signed this I signed these papers and I'm married, or maybe it's just maybe it's a family thing, or maybe it's a friend that you've had for 20 years and it's just not really happening anymore. And you're like, well, yeah, but we've been friends for so long. So those are the type of things that I look at as freedom, is kind of freeing yourself from the dogma that's out there, the ideas that you feel like you have to do things. And a lot of that comes from, like you mentioned, your trip that you just took off with 3 kids. And society will tell you that that's wrong, that that's bad, and you shouldn't do that. You should be more responsible. But that's where you if you listen to all those things, like what society says, you end up creating a life of much less freedom, and you're sort of boxed into this world of like, okay, I need to go to college. After college, I need to get married. After I get married, I need to buy a house. Then need to start having kids. Then need to, and all these things where it's like you're just living a life that's a script that someone else wrote.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. I love it. I'm glad you said it because I've been preaching that for the past couple of years now. So it's pretty cool that you said that, and I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah.
Before we pressed record, we were talking about this new currency, right? Bitcoin. Now, I have to confess, I'm not that up on it. I'm not too sure about what it's all about. So I want you to shed a little bit of light on Bitcoins for us. I know this is a little bit off the subject, but I think it's very important that this information needs to be out there right now.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy that you asked me that, because I'm really excited about Bitcoin. And yeah, most people I think have heard of it at this point, but don't know much about it. Like, it's not part of their lives. It's not something that they would have thought about much. But it's an alternative cryptocurrency is what they call it, or digital currency, and it's basically just money for the internet. And that's something that probably should have been created a long time ago. But it's out now. It's just starting to gain traction. I think it probably would have taken off around the late 90s when people were just starting to get the idea of paying for things online. There were some people trying to do digital currencies back then, but it just didn't take off. It wasn't the right time. But now it really is. It's a great time to kind of learn more about Bitcoin and what it can do.
How does it work?
Yeah, it's basically like an email. It's like sending an email with money. So it's bits that you can transfer online with your phone, however digitally. So it sounds a little bit confusing, but it's basically like, think about PayPal, how that works.
Right. That's what I was going to.
You can send someone a PayPal and then they have money, and then they can transfer it to their bank account. This is taking out the whole idea of banks. So with Bitcoin, you're your own bank. So you could have an online wallet where you store your Bitcoins, and somebody can send you, just using your address. So everybody has an address, and somebody can send you Bitcoins to that address, and then they're yours. So the big difference is that we were taking out that third party intermediary, so that you're taking out the bank out of the equation, that's where this idea that it's revolutionary comes in, because now we have a system where you really don't even, if you transact in Bitcoins, you really don't need a bank. So it takes banks completely out of the equation. Now, of course, right now we have to transact in dollars and euros and things like that, so we need banks, but in the future, when Bitcoin becomes bigger, becomes more mainstream, we're going to have less and less need for banks. And you can see where that will change things quite a bit in the world, because, bankers control everything. So
that's got to be kind of interesting.
Yeah. And then, just things like being able to send, like right now, if you want to send somebody in, let's say, Japan, $20,000, it's a huge process. I mean, you have to fill out paperwork. The wire transfer thing takes 2 days, and it's a pain in the ass. And with Bitcoin, you could send somebody instantly $20 million, they will get it within seconds. In Japan, you could send that over. They get it in seconds, and the fee is almost zero to you.
Okay.
So if you can see how that type of thing is an advantage for a lot of people that do international business. Like, you don't have to go through all these channels just to get money to somebody that's halfway around the world.
But you still have to purchase the coins, right? Initially, I mean, it's not just going to show up.
Yeah, exactly. So you can trade your U.S. fiat dollars, which is basically, we call them fiat dollars because they're money that's created out of thin air,
right.
And it's not backed by anything. You can trade those for Bitcoin, digitally. So there's a couple ways. There's a few ways to do that. I like to use, there's a site called localbitcoins.com where you can actually meet somebody in your local area, and they can sell you Bitcoin. You give them the dollar, the paper money, and then they send the Bitcoins to your address. And there's a few ways to do that. I mean, the easiest thing to do is go to coinbase.com, set up an account. You'll have an account, within I think it takes like a day or something. And you can start buying Bitcoin actually from Coinbase. So if you're willing to give up your bank details, then you can start buying Bitcoin from them directly. And then the local Bitcoins is the other way. And for me at this point, I talk to friends that I have in the area that can sell, and so it's really an easy thing to do. Yeah, and the one thing I wanted to mention also is that one of the advantages of Bitcoin as a currency is that it's a limited number of them that will ever be created. So the way the program works, the way Bitcoin was designed, is there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins ever to be printed in existence. So you can't possibly have an inflationary scenario because nobody is in control of it. It's a decentralized currency. Nobody is in control. So nobody's printing up Bitcoins. They're mined, and it takes a lot of computing power to mine Bitcoins. And that's something that gets really technical, and I'm sure your audience isn't really interested in how it's all done, but it's all decentralized. There's millions of people around the world that can mine Bitcoins, and then they basically get paid for doing this work, doing these computations, and then there only can be 21 million, and nobody's controlling the currency, so it's a perfect free market idea that cannot be manipulated or controlled or brought down in any way, because it's on the internet. So yeah, there's just a ton of advantages to it.
Okay, definitely. Let's switch gears a little bit. All right. Yep. I have a few more questions for you. I know your time is very valuable, but before you go, I just wanted to get a few strategies from you. I have, like I said, most of my listeners are in that transitional stage where they're thinking about becoming, lifestyle entrepreneurs or creating a business for themselves, right? Now, from your experience, what are some strategies that you can utilize right now to start creating your lifestyle business?
Yeah, I like that question, and I look at it that a lot of this is mindset, and I'm not going to try to weasel out of it or anything, but a lot of this is mindset, and so there's a few things that I think stop a lot of people from what I can see out there that want to do this, they want to create something, but they just get tripped up on things that really it's unnecessary. So the first thing is I would say don't worry too much about the whole passion thing, because you'll hear a lot of people say, well, if you work in your passion, you'll never have a day where you don't want to work. So, just try to find something you're passionate about and do that. Well, it's hard because some people don't really have one strong passion that they can just fall into and say, okay, I'm just going to do this and I'll make money and that's perfect. In fact, most people don't have that. So I think that kind of advice of saying, work in your passion it's kind of flawed, because it can lead you to just struggling to find something, and that can take years. And then, whereas you can just start something and it doesn't have to be exactly what you're passionate. Maybe there's something you're slightly interested in, and you could become an expert just by knowing a little bit more than the people that are in your audience. The one thing you absolutely need to do is find a way to enjoy the work, no matter what it is. So if you're not in the exact niche that you want to be in, let's say that you really want to travel and you don't have a lot of money right now, but you need to do something that is going to allow you to travel and at least bring in some money as you go. So that could be writing. There's a lot of opportunities in writing, and it could be writing about something that you have no interest in. But if you can find a way to be excited about the writing itself, then that can carry you through. And then the idea that could lead to something else. So in internet business, a lot of times one thing leads to another. So you start doing one thing. So let's say you start doing SEO writing, which is really popular for people that are just getting started in internet business or in kind of lifestyle business, because there's a huge demand for it, and there's just not that many people that are doing it. So let's say you start doing SEO writing, and you're writing 5-10 articles a day, and it's taking a lot of time, and maybe it's not 100% interesting, but this could lead you to learning how to do some other things in SEO, where you're helping people do something else online, rank their website higher with some other technique. And then suddenly that leads to something else. And then pretty soon you've got a business that you never even envisioned at the beginning. So just keep that in mind, that things can lead, one thing can lead to another, and it doesn't have to be super exciting right off the bat. But and the last thing that I had on this is just drop any comparisons to other people, because you have to realize that lifestyle businesses you're setting yourself apart from almost everybody, especially like if you compare anyone in your world, your friends, your family. Most people are going to have no idea what it is and how it works and why you do it and all that. So you get into the world of internet business, and you start reading about what different people are doing. Thanks for listening
and it's
to
easy
another
to start
episode
drawing
of the
comparisons and going, oh my God, this guy's making $50,000 a month, and here I am struggling to make $800 a month. And it's easy to get down on yourself, but that's where you have to realize that you're comparing yourself to the top of the top of the top, and much better to say, look, what are your friends doing? What are people that you know doing? They're probably working in some sort of office or some sort of job that they really don't like, and they're just getting by, and you're setting yourself apart just by taking this step of trying to do this. And even if you are at that point of making just enough to get by, or you're not even enough to get by, you're on your way. And I think that's where it's really important to realize that you're taking that step to get more freedom. You're really taking, and there's a book, James Altucher, he's a blogger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wrote a book called Choose Yourself. And I love that concept, because that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that you want to get into something where you're choosing yourself, or you're doing it for yourself. And so my philosophy is I'd rather make $10 an hour doing that thing that where I'm choosing myself, rather than sitting in office making $100,000 a year and not having nearly as much freedom. So
beautiful. That's excellent. And he also has. Did you read The Power of No?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, excellent, right? Actually, I went to see him speak here in New York, and he was off the hook, man. He was.
Oh, really?
He just went in on it. So. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, man, you've given some really, really good content. It's a pleasure having you here, man. I definitely appreciate you coming by and sharing with us.
Yeah, Kurt, it's been a blast. I really enjoyed this, and I love what you're doing. Keep it up, and definitely want to hear more. So.
Definitely. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. So where can we find out more information about you? We'll take all those links and put it into the show notes and stuff like that.
Yeah, my blog is freedomlovin.com. There's no G at the end. It's just Lovin. So freedomlovin.com is where you can find me. And anyone can contact me there. I'd love to hear from you.
Beautiful. And we'll put all of that into the show notes, and share it with our listeners and social media people as well. All right. So thanks a lot again, man. I appreciate it. And so, guys, you have been blessed. You've been inspired by the words of Mr. Kevin Cascella. You can find out more about Kevin over at freedomloving.com and get some more of his contents. And also go over to Confessions of a Lifestylepreneur. I have an ebook for you, a little gift. Make sure you like us on Facebook and continue to consume this content, because it's all about inspiring you to live a life of freedom. All right. So I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.
You've been listening to Confessions of a Lifestylepreneur.